Pushing slash. I hope you're ready for an empire conquering simulator, because we're playing Romancing Saga 2. And not to be confused with the 3D remake, this is an enhancement of the original SNES version. Now, if you're not familiar with Romancing Saga 2, or the Saga series in general, or if you had the most horrific, unfortunate event of being introduced to it by The Gaming Shelf, who used to be somebody you used to watch, but, you know, over the years, like, especially since he did his Saga video, like, really just... I'm not trying to bash someone else, but it's like... It's kind of weird that when an RPG, like, focused website, and then you just bash one of the most creative, interesting series with a baseball bat, like, every fucking entry. Like, it's weird. Like, he called this the worst JRPG series of all time. That's insane when you know some of the actual stinkers that exist in, like, Japan. Like, you know, games that never even came to America kind of shit. Like, that's an absurd, it makes you look like a fucking clown kind of like, claim there, to be honest. Anyway, moving away from that, fucking train wreck, let's actually talk about this game. Now, I will admit, like, not every Saga game is perfect, and they have their different charms and negative aspects, because they're very experimental, and almost every Saga game does wackily different things. You know how people argue Final Fantasy, oh, modern Final Fantasy is about testing and doing... That's what Saga is. Saga is about doing weird, different things. Final Fantasy should just stay traditional, but again, that's a whole different argument as well. Anyway, so this is a game where you play as a young emperor whose father and brother get murdered by a former hero. This world had a legend where 7 great heroes came and saved the world, and supposedly they would return again. Well, they did return, but not to save the world, but to bury it. And sadly, one of them targeted your father's kingdom, and that led to his and your brother's demise, which led to you on a path of revenge. Swearing to take down the 7 heroes, you ravage on a war against them that would last generations beyond his own life. This is a very unique RPG, because it's what I like to call a generational RPG, which is not a very common system, but there are a few, like, Phantasy Star 3 is one of the oldest generation RPGs I know of off the top of my head. And then there's the, what's that one that was on the 360? Generations of War. That's also a generational RPG event. So this one's basically, your main character can die. Like, every emperor who takes the throne can die and be replaced by another emperor. It's a very interesting aspect. Now, it does have a lot of the similar traits that most of the series has, where characters learn abilities and stat-ups based on what they do in combat, which is one of the more common mechanics that carry over through many of the Saga entries. This also features the Extreme LP system. I like the two LP systems, because one's more extreme and the other's a lot more lighthearted. Like in Frontier, you know, you can just restore your LP when you go healing and stuff, that, like, go west at the end. There's only like one quest in Saga Frontier that can permanently take your max LP away. Other than that, you know, you can always restore your LP. In this game, there are a few ways to restore LP, but they are very limited, and after that, you don't get any more methods to give people LP anymore. So, usually that's recommended for the end game when you're on your final Emperor, because your final Emperor, well, has a finite amount of LP, so those items, I do recommend saving for your final Emperor if they happen to take LP damage, because other than those, no more LP. So for every other Emperor, they will permanently perish and be replaced by a new Emperor. Now, the Emperor system, or Empress system, because, you know, it could be male or female or that, there is one thing to note. Emperors are all finite. There are a lot of them. As you keep recruiting new classes, you will add new Emperors to your line. But basically, there is a finite amount. A lot of them. As long as you keep getting new classes, you'll get a lot. Like, I mean, I think doing the math off your starting ones, I think, I can't quite remember, but I think, like, just with your starting classes, I think you'll get, like, something like 20 Emperors or something. So, and there's a lot of job classes. So, you have to go through all possible Emperors before the game will just be like, oh, there's no more heroes. So, from what I understood in my research, I mean, there's a lot of mechanics under the hood of this game that I and other people still don't fully 100% understand to a certain extent to that. But it's very crazy systems in that, especially if you go in blind. I went in blind for the majority of the game, and only at the end I started doing a little research, because it just, the final boss is crazy hard. Oh, blur. Anyway, this is one of those games where combat, all your characters will cover their HP, not their LP and SP. I mean, their LP, their SP, and MP do not recover after combat, but all their HP and all status effects are cured after combat. So this isn't one of those games where you need to constantly run back to the end to recover, use your stack of 99 potions and stuff to keep going through a dungeon. So there's a interesting balance of resource management where you can technically keep going, but like against really strong shit where you need to use your special abilities that consume resources. So, depending on where you are in the game and the strength of your current party, you may be able to just keep pushing through, or other times you might be like, well, I need special abilities to do enough damage to this thing, because it's killing my people too fast if I don't kill it faster enough. So, there's a bit of balance to that. Until you get to your final Emperor, treat all your parties as expendable. You might get wiped out, and that's perfectly natural in this game and part of leveling up. When your party gets wiped out, you get a generational kind of boost system. There's a lot of behind-the-scene level mechanics and stuff that get scaled up when your Emperor gets wiped out. Basically, like, your Emperor will be usually ahead of your party members the majority of the game. And your party members don't get like a generational push. Like, let's say you lose a knight and you go get a new knight. That new knight is still at a certain like scaling based off when you got your current Emperor. When the Emperor gets killed, then that scaling towards all your different classes and stuff gets pushed up. It gets upgraded. So, like, there's actual good that happens for being wiped out, but you do need to do stuff still. You don't just go out and just die over and over again without no progress of anything. You need to do some stuff too. So if you go out there, find a hero and you die to them, but you did a whole bunch of stuff, it's not the end of the day. It'll help progress your kingdom stuff and get people leveled up, and it applies a lot of the stuff they learned and stuff. Plus, that causes a shift. A shift is very important as well. It's something that I wish I understood when I started the game, because it really hindered my magic learning a lot in this game. Because later on, you'll get the ability to mix different elements, and those require a shift to actually finish learning. And once I started getting to the point I could actually start learning mixed up magic, I no longer had shifts. I was on my final Emperor. Whoop. I didn't take magic too seriously, to be fair, throughout the game, and that was partially my fault. Equipment wise, you have 4 slots for weapons and potions that you can equip, and you get 3 slots for armor. Now, if you're similar, if you're familiar with some of the PS1 era SaGa games with suits and things, certain armor pieces will consume the ability to equip other things. So, like, if you equip the suit, you can't put boots, gloves, and stuff on. So, you gotta keep that kind of thing in mind when equipping different armor pieces, because different armor pieces have a lot of uses. Plus, certain classes and races, like, for example, the Lizardmen, they have a body piece that you can't remove, so lizards cannot equip suits because of that. So, things like that you gotta keep in mind with different characters and that. Now, as I said, this is an enhanced version of the SNES version, so they did do some rebalancing, so it's not 100% the same. And they did add new content, similar to what they did with SaGa Frontiers, upgraded, remastery kind of thing. And, to put simply, they did something similar as well, where you can play without that new stuff. I'm assuming the rebalances are still applied, but like the few new quests and things that got added, you can play without those if you want a more authentic experience to the original game. And there's still some things I'm sure that remain, like how they adjusted a few things. Like, for example, like you could save in the final area of like the original SNES version, and you couldn't leave once you went past a certain point. Now, in this version, you can leave when you get to that point, so they made it where you can get out of the dungeon, which was probably something they didn't really think too hard about back then, maybe. Plus, they added a New Game Plus mode. New Game Plus will allow you to carry over some of the items, learned abilities, money, and skills to a new game, which is a huge boon to a starting game. And I think this mode was added in case you basically get to the end, because, like I said, when you get to the final Emperor, you cannot do a shift, and you cannot get a new Emperor. The final Emperor is your final character. So if you go through the game too much, too fast, too perfect, too unsacrificial of your Emperors, you could actually cause problems for your endgame. Now, they're all beneficial things to speedrunning the game with as few Emperors. There's, like I said, there's a lot of mechanics and numbers and information kept track of you don't get to actually know of. But from what I understand, one of the benefits to speedrunning, actually, without losing lots of Emperors and stuff, is to lower the turn count of the final boss. Apparently, based off some various amounts of data, the final boss will attack more or less often based off certain things. So being in less combat and having less Emperors and stuff apparently kind of contributes into that idea. So if you go through lots of Emperors, you're probably going through lots of combat, which leads to the possibility of having a final boss that does a lot of attacks. So, but of course, you need to know more what you're doing, because believe me, if you don't go in really well prepared, the final boss will kick your fucking ass very hard. Oh my goodness. Whew. Definitely up there on my top 10 final bosses, honestly. Epic as fuck and hard as hell. Now, you have full weapon types, because, again, just like many entries in SaGa, the one based off using weapons, and you get a skill count. You got blade weapons, blunt weapons, spear weapons, and ranged weaponry. And as you level those up, you learn new abilities, and leveling them up makes it where you also do more damage and stuff. But you also got close combat as well, which I didn't do too much, but there's an interesting healing ability you can get off that, which is pretty nice, especially since healing is a bit tricky in this game, to be honest. There are 6 magical elements: water, earth, wind, light, fire, and one that I didn't get access to, because apparently one of the choices you make in the game will choose between a class or that spell type, but darkness, shadow magic. And all these can have combinations with each other, which again you can pay to learn, and then have a shift where they actually get learned and stuff. Now, magic is a little bit weird in this game because characters, pretty much anyone can learn anything for the most part. The only real big deal is that you can't have every type of magic. For example, you can't have someone who uses water and fire at the same time, or earth or wind, or light and darkness. You can only have one of the opposite, but not both. Similar to SaGa Frontier, actually, because SaGa Frontier also featured a duality type spell system. Actually, you know, this review is making me more realization that, SaGa Frontier might have actually lifted a lot more things from SaGa 2, Romancing SaGa 2 than I thought. But yeah, any class can basically learn any magic. It's really more about the time you want to put into letting them learn magic. Because magic is very time consuming to level up to get advanced magic and then get to the point that you can do mixed magic learning. You have to put a lot of time commitment into it because each element features different types of spells, and some can be very situational, so some elements can be a little easier and harder to level up because some may feature more aggressive magic while others may feature more situational healative magic, which can make it a little more trickier to level up a bit. Now, this game features the SP and MP system, which are again systems that have been seen and featured in different SaGa games and in other RPGs in general. SP is your special ability points, so you can use like your fancy sword and spear attacks and things and abilities in regards to those. So you do have finite amount of those, but you do restore those when healing, just same as MP. And as you use weapons and magic, the max cap of your SP and MP can go up. So, becoming a better melee fighter, more SP. Becoming a better mage, more MP. Now, this game features a interesting take on the formation system. Now, if you've played a lot of JRPGs, you've probably seen formations where, you know, you have your melee characters that are big and bulky in the front, and your ranger and mage characters in the back. But this has presetted formations, which all have strategical value based on what kind of strat and emperor you have. Have a tanky emperor? You can go with a formation that puts the fucking emperor front and center to take all damage. Have a less tankier one? You can have a formation that keeps the emperor safe in the back. They could be a mage or a range user and let all the other party members take front leave. Different ones that boost defense, speed, slow you down. They all have different tactical advantages. The bigger problem with formations is how you learn them. Different emperors, when talking to the tactics warrior that's in your kingdom, they will sometimes partake in learning a new formation from different emperors. So every time you get a different class of emperor, it's worth talking to the tactical officer in the training room because they might learn a new formation. And in this version of the game, they added a formation I got from one of the new dungeons they added in the game. So there may also be some other formations outside the OG system. I'll be honest, when it comes to like usable items, there aren't a lot of usable items in combat. There's a few heal items, and they're very nuanced, and then there's a few items you can use outside of combat to restore MP and SP and LP. But like outside that, there ain't a lot of fucking item usage. This is very simplistic items, so your equipment is mostly what's going to consume a lot of your inventory space, which you do have a max inventory space, so you do want to keep in mind not carrying too much rubbish. Speaking of rubbish, you do have a vault to keep all your various equipment in, and believe me, you'll be stockpiling all kinds of crap in there, because to be honest, there's not really any point in going to take the time to sell stuff. You don't get a lot of money for selling, and you get lots of money for fucking fighting shit, especially in the late game. Once you got so much of the world conquered, your tax money is insane. And that's probably something actually to go into now, actually. While you're on this giant war for the 7 heroes, you're essentially uniting the world under your banner, because, well, they're conquering and destroying the fucking world, so... And as you unite the world, you get taxes and shit. You can find out with your treasury room, which is near your throne, how many crowns you get. Now, that amount of crowns that you get as revenue is how much you get per combat. So, for example, my final save, I get 38,000 crowns per combat. And over time, you'll get requests to, like, partake in funding things, learning new magic. For example, like I said, costs money. But getting the facility for magic in the first place also costs money. So, you even need to pay money to even learn the ability to start learning magic. So, it is very worth to take the sit on your throne and see if you get any offers to donate money to new upgrades and things in your kingdom. There's also a blacksmith that you can donate money to learn new weapons and stuff. These weapons you'll be given a prototype, and in the next generation, these weapons will become available in the store. So, again, also worth partaking in. So you need to be smart about how you're doing your money. Partake in too many donations, you'll run low on funds to actually use for several little scenarios. But don't use enough, and you might not end up with good enough stuff to partake in future battles or the end of the game. So what I would tell you, some of the most important things in this game is definitely to learn lots of useful skills in magic. Don't underestimate the power of learning lots of good techniques. Because the sad thing is, you're going to always run into fights that actually can wipe you out. There are devastating monsters you can run into as you progress through the game that can kill you. Along with bosses, of course. So there's always danger. There's always danger, and learning techniques to avoid danger and or quickly kill those such enemies until they are no longer a threat and are replaced by other enemies that become bigger threats. It's funny kind of we fighting an enemy that used to be like super threatening, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, you're Swiss cheese now. Swiss cheese! And of course, learning powerful attacks is good, but there's also other things like dodge abilities. From what I understand, almost every fucking enemy skill pretty much has a dodge ability you can learn. And if you can learn dodge abilities for some of the devastating ones that are really common uses either between enemies and or really diddly boss moves, you can actually make a lot of use. And by the end of the game, a lot of the bosses use a lot of different moves that you will likely have seen in different places. And equipping any of those you can on your party members can lessen the amount of hits you take from the final boss. Believe me, it's super useful. Anything that negates the worst of the worst that the final boss can use is a huge use. Sadly, I didn't get too many things, but still worked out in the end. I had to do the final boss like 10 times, so man. Whew, it's been a long time since I had something on par with like Persona 3's final boss for me. I want to touch up on one of the main things that were added to this game. While, like I said, there were some adjustments to a few things, there's also a unique quest you can get as the last Emperor that goes all the way back to the beginning of the game, referencing. The main big thing is the Maze of Memory. The Maze of Memory, as far as I understand, is broken up into initially 4 areas, and then you unlock a 5th area, and these are all super bosses and a collection of essentially almost all the monsters you can fight in the game. So there's a unique way how monsters are handled. There are types of monsters, and depending on your encounter weight and things like that, it dictates what monsters appear in that combat encounter. And the Maze of Memory is one of the few places in the game that break that system. Well, the rest of the game will follow a formula on how and what you encounter. The Maze of Memory is based off of floors. So on floor 1, the type of enemies that appear in the 4 initial areas are the weakest enemies in the game. So this presents an interesting opportunity for non-SNES players, because in the original SNES game, basically similar to like SaGa Frontier, grinding increases enemy difficulty. Even if you run away, it contributes to the numbers that calculate enemy strength going up. So your encounter weight can be a hindrance or a blessing depending on your strategy in going through the game. So going to the Maze of Memory is a way to be able to do a few different things. First thing, like I said, there are super bosses there, so obviously that's a place to go for extra content. You can also acquire additional equipment and items that are rare and not easy or even able to farm in the OG game, and you're able to get some of that stuff in the Maze of Memory, which is useful. But the additional thing is that you can use it to grind. So if you find yourself in a strange situation that you want to build up tech points and counterweights, or just practice using magic in attacks, but you're finding the enemies are too strong to let you do that, you can go to the Maze of Memory, find the appropriate floor that is of your difficulty range, and you can grind there. But keep in mind it will raise your encounter weight, which will affect the overall difficulty of the regular enemies. Now, to be fair, by the end of the game, unless you strategically keep a low encounter weight, which is high-grade play skill in this game, you're likely going to get near end tier levels of monsters anyway by the end of the game. At the end of the game, the major factor that's going to be affected is how the final boss deals its amount of turns and things. Because the higher it can have more turns, and the lower it can have lower turns. There's a whole lot of mathematical shit that goes into a lot of that stuff. I mean, seriously, there is a very fantastic Romancing Saga 2 guide website page that has just endless information on how a lot of these mechanical things work. So believe me, if you want to learn and understand a lot of that stuff, you can go to that resource. I will try to remember to put a pinned comment for that website. I used it for the final boss because, like I said, at the end of the game, I was basically at, well, I need to figure out how to do this, and to figure out how to do this, I need to understand the mechanics more beyond just what I blindly learned. And like I said, there's a lot of stuff behind the corn, and even more if you're playing the SNES version. This version had a few changes that reveal a little bit more items effect stuff to you than you would know in the SNES version. Now, your progression through the game is probably one of the things that gets criticized a lot in this game, and even the gaming shelf criticized this element, the open world aspect of it. So it's not a traditional open world game per se. Like, you don't walk out of town, there's a giant vast void for you to walk, and you can just go anywhere. You do still, say Final Fantasy Tactics or any of the map-based, overworlds, you have areas you can go to. But I guess what I mean more by the open world aspect of the game is the freedom to choose where to go. The game at the beginning it's a little linear, but the game starts opening up to where you can go through different countries completely different ways. Like, for a quick little example, there's one kingdom I could have gone to sooner that would have led to a better outcome for the kingdom, but I never found a way to get there until late in the game, where the 7 heroes took over the kingdom, killed the inhabitants, and all that was left was a small rebellion, and the 2 sons were fucking dead and ghosts. And I had to completely solve a completely different problem there the save and make that kingdom part of my kingdom and get the class unlocked from now. And that's one that still allows you to get stuff. There are other scenarios, like if you don't do them now, you can not only get a different scenario, but lose out on the rewards. Like, there was a class I lost out because I didn't feel like my party was capable of saving the town at the moment. And I had some generational shifts. I don't know if it was like 1, 2 or something. But when I went back to try and give it a try, things had changed. And the situation had changed. And while the 7th hero was still there ruling that town, the characters I interacted with had passed on, and there was really nothing else. And I couldn't gain anything from the people that would have still been alive if I had done the situation when I first went to that area and triggered those things. So you can have different outcomes that can lead to still getting the rewards to losing out on the rewards. So there are different outcomes to stuff, different orders you can do, and positive and negative things. And like I said, there's even the choice of getting either a different type of magic wand or another class. So you have choices to make as well. And playing this game blind will lead to lots of crazy differences between different people's playthroughs, because the difficulty will also be dictated by, again, your skills and magic you learn, the kind of classes you have with you. Some have better time at other missions than others, so you might find one section vastly easier than another player. But because of that, it's not very hand-holdy. You do talk to NPCs, and several will give you hints at things happening at other towns or stuff you could potentially do and things. So this isn't a very hand-holdy game where it's like, you clearly need to go here and do this and do that, like, all the time. It's very vague a lot of the time on where or what you could do, so exploring and trying to figure out what to do can be a little frustrating sometimes. And I won't lie, there's a few times where I wasn't quite sure where or what to do sometimes along my bumpy journey through this game as well. So if you get frustrated on that, or you really need a lot more hand-holding, it might not be your cup of tea without a guide, maybe. And I wouldn't blame anyone for using a guide on this game. Honestly, like, if I had used a guide, I would have understood a lot of the mechanics a lot better. But, you know, I wouldn't have had as much challenge probably either. Like, the final boss would have probably been so much easier if I understood all the mechanics and what to, you know, what to do and have prepped better. So that part is, you know, up to your cup of tea. I definitely think it's a worthy game to experience, though. It's very, very interesting, different twist. If you've never played any of the SaGa games, you're in for a very unique treat if you want something very different from the generic JRPG experience. I love the generic turn-based JRPG experience, but, you know, once in a while, you want something nice, fresh, and different. Unless you're the gaming shelf, then you call the series that does that the worst series of all time, apparently. But anyway. Now, I'm playing the physical PS4 version. Now, this did get a Switch and PS4 version. Sadly, if you want to get a physical copy of this, as far as I can tell, retail-wise, like, you know, normal brand new price retail, PlayAsia only has the PS4 version in stock. If you want the Switch version, I'm sorry, it looks like you're going to be paying a lot of money. And of course, it is available digitally on PC, PS4, Switch, and surprisingly, even on Xbox. Its digital price is $24.99. If you want the currently listed PlayAsia version for $52.99 physically. And then eBay, well, for one thing, it's kind of actually hard to find on eBay because the 3D remake. It's a little tricky to find because that keeps popping up with it, along with, you know, random other shit. But it appears, when it comes to the PS4 version, you're looking at 50 plus, and if you're looking for the Switch version, which I only see one listing of the Switch version from what I can find right now on eBay, is at $90 fucking dollars through third-party people. Ow. That's expensive. That's a lot of fucking money. Now, is it worth any of these prices at all? Now, as I said, this is an enhanced version. Other than some rebalancings and new quests, primarily what they did is they upgraded the backgrounds. If you were to look up the SNES version, you know, the ground, the houses, the backgrounds and battles, look a lot more simple. I will admit the original tiles for the backgrounds were pretty simple looking in Romancing Saga 2. Probably was a very last tier thing compared to all the mechanical crazy shit that's in this game, to be fair. So, enhancing it is a bit more understandable because the sprites themselves for the characters are pretty decent. But yeah, the game did feature a pretty simplistic background. Now, I would have probably liked if you could toggle that. I kind of confused why a lot of these remasters of the SNES games like this that have been upgrading the backgrounds but leaving the sprites normal don't offer a toggle for the background stuff. Like, it's kind of strange, and you would think it wouldn't be that hard to do. Like, I don't know, I find it weird when you're seeing these little SNES sprites walking along these, like, much more higher upgraded backgrounds. Like, it seems odd to me. In the case of this game, if it was an option, I probably would just go with the better looking stuff, because, well, it still is an odd clash of two art styles. The original, like I said, are very plain looking. I do recall playing, like, a lot of the backgrounds for battles are very simple with that. But it's not really a big deal either way. Now, are these upgrades and enhancements worth adding to the price of the game? Do they increase the value? Do they decrease the value? Are these good, worthwhile changes? Well, as someone who's never been the original, I actually own a box copy of the Japanese SNES cartridge, but because, at least back when I played it, it never had a full translation. I don't know the stats on that these days. For years and decades, it remained like an unfinished translation where combat was translated, but the story never was, like, fully translated. I don't know about it now. But I did play it a decent amount back then, and even though I didn't get super far, I was always, like, thought it was such an interesting game. And when this came out and we finally got a physical version of this version, I bought immediately. I pre-ordered immediately from PlayAsia because I was like, sweet heavens, yes, please. Please, please. And I was so excited to finally get around to playing this. As somebody who's never got to finish the original version of that, or if this is your first time playing this entry and stuff, like, I think the value is pretty good here. Like, this is still remains one of my most interesting entries in the SaGa series. Even though it took up to this version to ever play through the whole thing, it always retained this title to me of being one of the most interesting entries in the whole series. And I definitely think if you're wanting something different from the normal JRPG experience, it is definitely a game I recommend checking out if you want some additional challenge, building an empire, and dealing with a lot of different party members. So what would I give the value of this game, though? Honestly, I think $50 is a fair price for this game. $50, $49, $99. I think it's a good price for a physical version. Now, digitally, like, I mean, $24.99 is a decent price too. Honestly, I think it's a good game. I recommend it. Maybe I'm overvaluing it, but I don't know. I think it's a good price. I would give $49.99 for this. It's a good experience and shit. They added some new stuff to it, and the fact that, like, you know, this is the first time it's been officially translated in English and stuff, you know, it's all understandable to me. I guess if it was like a readily available game we had in America on the SNES already and that, like, maybe I could see the value being a little less. Like, you know, it's like, oh, it's another version of Final Fantasy IV. Ooh, I bet that's a $50 experience right there, right? So maybe, like, for a Japanese person, like, maybe the value wouldn't be that high. Maybe for, like, a Japanese user, it'd probably be more like $39.99 probably. But for a Western person, I think 50 is a fair price. First time officially localized, lots of new shit, and it's a really enjoyable game. I recommend it. Now, is that perfect? Is it perfect? No, I wouldn't say it's perfect. One of the things that's kind of annoying, I kind of wish they spent some time making something like, you ever play Final Fantasy VIII, where you move, like, GFs and all the stuff that's equipped to them and stuff around party members? I wish there was something like that, because, like, every time you start a new generational with an Emperor, and you pick your new party members, you go pick them up and stuff, I wish there was, like, a really quick way to, like, copy, like, a layout of the previous character you had of that class, and just, you know, auto-equip their shit. Because basically what I did is I just kept all the high level of everything. The highest level greatsword, the highest level sword, the highest level axe, the highest level spear, and so on and so forth, unless they had a few special things. Like, there's a staff I found that's actually really useful, that I kept as a side offer because a ability had on it. But generally I kept all the high shit on me, so like having a system where you could just auto-equip whatever the last shit you had on the class would have been really useful, because and along with the skills and equipment, because every time you start a new Emperor and you go get all the characters and stuff, and then you go start attaching the skills and magic and all the equipment on, it's like a 20-minute process to do. Like, it takes a little while, and it's pretty annoying, to be honest. It's very annoying, to be honest. It's probably the biggest complaint I would have about the game. I really wish there was a quicker way to just slap on. I mean, even if you want to argue, like, with the weapons, like, I understand maybe, like, some people ain't gonna carry those weapons on them. They could have at least done it for spells and skills, and it would have even still been a great savings in time, because there's no real complication I would see in doing that with the spells and skills. Like, just have them. Do you want the previous skills and spells you had with the previous one? Be like, yes, and boop. And then you can just remove any ones you don't want, which is probably one or two, and there, you've probably saved, like, 12-15 minutes of running around your kingdom, getting all that shit situated. Would have been nice, honestly. Because I can tell you, that's one of the things I dreaded every Emperor, was fucking getting all the skills and spells reattached to everyone over and over again. I don't really have any complaints about the game, though. Something that might be a minor annoyance or a bigger complaint to other people is the lack of ability to change the controls in this version. So, if you're not familiar with Asian markets, PlayStation games, O is confirmed and X is cancelled in a lot of Japanese Asian games. Where it's the other way around in a lot of games in America where they made X conform and O cancel. Well, this game doesn't offer a option to swap those around, so if you aren't adaptable, then you might need to go into your system settings and force that change. Because, yeah, O is accept and X is cancel in this game at all times on the PlayStation version, and I imagine the other versions, or whatever the setup for that is. But yeah, just toss that. That might be something that might be minorly annoying for some other people. Overall, though, fantastic game. Recommend. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Romancing Saga 2. The original remastered version of it. If you feel like you learned anything interesting, feel free to leave a like. If you feel like you didn't learn anything interesting at all, feel free to leave a dislike, feel free. Now, spoilers. Here's a unique concept in this game. The 7 heroes have different forms. The sooner you fight a hero, the lesser they'll form, and the later you fight a hero, the higher of a form they have. And depending on things you do in their quest line can affect what form they're in too. And the forms all have stronger and weaker attacks, and some of them actually have completely different strats for what form they're in. So, depending again how you progress through the game and go through the different parts of the continent, you can encounter weaker or stronger versions of the different 7 heroes. And this can be very important to note, because, like, for example, I ran into this one guy, like the 7th hero in, like, the SaGa desert, and, like, when I fought them, they were weak as fuck. Like, seriously, like, just joke. That was the biggest joke. Apparently, if you wait for so long to where they're in the last version of their form, they're immensely difficult with, like, mind control, like, really fucked up mind controlling abilities, which I did get to see in the final boss. Oof. So, like, this game offers a lot of replay value on top of that, because you can experience completely different fights of the 7 heroes. So, if that's your kind of thing, there's added replay in there. Ooh, boy. Now, as I said, this is a story about ravaging the lands. No, not ravaging the lands. The cleansing. No, not cleansing the lands. Uniting the lands against the 7 heroes who are ravaging the lands. At the end of the game, after you find all the 7 heroes, to trigger the end and the final emperor. Now, to be fair, there is apparently a system where you can also not trigger the final emperor and actually end the game as not the final emperor. Apparently, to do this, you have to cause a non-generational shift when you get to the end game, which I imagine is a lot more trickier to do, to be honest. Since usually beating a 7 hero causes a generational shift, so I'm not sure the full mechanics on how to do that right, but Anyway, regardless of what order you beat the heroes in, once you get to the 7th hero, the 7th hero will retreat to the resting place that their true power rests at. And this is where you'll have your battle with the 7th hero. And the 7th hero can basically be anyone, from what I understand. Any of the characters. Because your 1st hero that you're forced to fight, sends you a letter for a rematch, and you can completely ignore him and make him appear as the 7th hero in front of the final boss. So, as far as I understand, any of the 7 heroes can be this boss. Once you beat this boss, they'll all conform into one horrifying mass of monstrosity, and this monstrosity will be able to use all their abilities. Now, it does have a phase system where it starts out with one character, and as you deal damage, another one, and each hero will peel off of this lump of mass, and all their abilities become available. Now, this is, I did hint at this, that there was a mechanic that controls how many turns and shit this monster will have. And it has access to all the heroes' abilities as each one appears. Until they appear, it won't. When they appear, they will. Their abilities will become part of its repertoire. And fighting any of these heroes alone a lot of times was a fight. Fighting a massive monster that could, like, once all 7 heroes appear, and it has access to all 7 heroes' fucking abilities. Some of the most devastating, horrific abilities. And the idea they could lump multiple of those in a round, on top of the unique mechanics of the void thing that happens during the fight. You have a lot of things to fucking watch out for. there's a lot of different ways to tackle this, and it's obviously a lot harder when you're doing a blind playthrough, which was my problem. Well, I got to the end, and I had to strategize and learn a lot more of the hidden mechanics of this game to understand the final boss a lot better. And I will tell you, one of the things that did hinder me was the fact that I was a lot more hesitant in letting my Emperors die. If I let a lot more Emperors died and played the game, because I was playing it blind. I didn't know how many Emperors you had access to. So that's why I gave an example in the review with your beginning classes you have, and tell you that you get more as you unlock classes. Like, I think you get like fucking 60 plus something Emperors as possibilities as you get more and more and more classes and shit. Like, I can't remember the math behind it exactly. Like, you have to go through like every possible character of each class as an Emperor before you run out of Emperors. So you'd have to die a lot, like a severe amount. But yeah, the final boss is just fucking crazy. I think I've done it like 12 something times. It's just crazy. And even my winning time was really close. Like, just like my Persona 3 final fight. It was so close. I was just that close to biting the dust, and I won. After strategizing and rearranging and trying to figure out my options with the characters I had, I did it. And oh boy, it felt good. It felt fantastic. But thank you for watching, and take it easy, and have a fantastic day.